I've learned a lot from life, but there's one decision I deeply regret: moving to a nursing home. I'm 81 years old, and despite all that life experience, how did I end up making such a decision? Believe me, I really don't know. Watch the video until the end. Some of these lessons might surprise you. And if you know someone considering a nursing home, this video might be something they need to hear before making a life-changing decision. Share the video with these people as well. Back then, it seemed like the right choice. My family encouraged it. They said they would provide me with all the care and comfort I needed. I believed them. Maybe I wanted to believe. But when I got there, I saw that reality was not as I had imagined. You might be considering this decision for yourself or for someone you love. But first, I want you to learn about the 6 topics I will discuss. Before entering the nursing home, I can't help but think how I wish someone had told me about these things. Let's get started. Regret 1. Losing my independence. Before moving to the nursing home, I was setting the rhythm of my life myself. I decided when to get up in the morning, how to spend my day, and when to rest in the evening. These were small freedoms, but they were the things that made me who I am. However, after moving to the nursing home, I realized that time was no longer under my control. Breakfast was at a specific time. Whether I had an appetite or not didn't matter. In the evening, the lights turned off at a certain time, whether I was ready to sleep or not. Do I want to go outside? First, I had to get permission, and then I had to wait for someone to accompany me. Simple choices, what to wear, what to read, even how to spend my day, had become privileges rather than the natural rights they once were. I remember my first week. I woke up in the morning and realized I wasn't in my own bed. My hands instinctively reached for the book I had been reading for years, but the book was not there. My eyes scanned the walls. There was nothing that belonged to me. The small comforts of home, my favorite coffee mug, the chair in front of my window, the memories adorning the walls. Everything was gone. Instead, there were cold walls, furniture I hadn't chosen, and an unavoidable reality. I was no longer in control of my own life. You get used to it over time, because you have no choice but to get used to it. You become part of the daily routine, learning not to make a sound. First, you start adhering to the meal times. Then you start participating in the scheduled activities. One day you realize that you don't even ask to go for a walk anymore, because you've learned how the system works. But in the process, you don't realize how much of yourself you've lost. If you are considering a nursing home, you should ask yourself this question: are you ready to give up the freedoms that make you who you are? Because once they are gone, you will miss them much more than you think. Regret 2. Feeling forgotten. At first, my family promised that they would never leave me and would always be by my side. But as time passed, I realized that these promises were merely empty vows. At first, they really did visit often. My daughter would leave her job every week, come to me, chat for an hour or two, and brighten my day. My grandchildren would run over after school. We would play games, laugh, and have fun. For weeks, these little gatherings felt like a part of my old life. In the nursing home, I still felt like I had an identity, like I hadn't severed ties with my old world. But after a while, everything changed. My daughter initially started calling only once a week. Then the phone calls became less frequent, and she started saying she had work and was a bit busy. My grandchildren started to focus on their school and social lives. The days when they said, "We'll come next week," remained just promises. And one day, I realized everything. One weekend, sitting alone in my room, waiting for sounds from the door, I felt very lonely. In the living room, there are other elderly people like me, but not being able to see anyone, being alone, was dragging me into an even more inescapable loneliness. As time passed, this loneliness grew heavier. For me, it was not only the passing of hours that was difficult, but also the fact that people were increasingly forgetting my days and memories. One evening, with my phone in hand, I hesitated whether to call my son or not. What was I going to say? You haven't forgotten me, have you? I'm here, still waiting. But I didn't want to burden him. I was already aware, knowing that I was here and perhaps he wouldn't actually come. I felt that day was some kind of my last day. So I hung up the phone, took a deep breath, and sank into silence. After a while, this became the new rhythm of my life. Waiting. One day, the hope that someone, perhaps for the last time, would come and remember me. But over time, that hope began to fade as well. The other elderly people were waiting in the same way. Each of us had our eyes on the door, hoping maybe today a visitor would come. But most of the time, they didn't come. No matter how much people love you, when you continue with your life, it's very easy to disappear from their sight. You only distance yourself physically, but after a while, they also distance themselves spiritually. My loved ones still love me, but this love was becoming more abstract and distant over time. Now, every day, I was becoming a memory. The loneliness brought by being forgotten deeply affected me. One day I thought, if you are considering moving to a nursing home, remember, are you ready for loneliness? Your family, your love can always remain. But over time, life goes on, and you are left behind. As the traces of the past fade, it becomes harder to get used to the loneliness of this new life. Are you really ready to face loneliness? If you continue watching this video and find this information valuable, please don't forget to subscribe. Let's continue. Regret 3. My health declining faster than expected. Before moving, I was still strong. I wasn't running a marathon, but there was still a zest for life. In the mornings, I would do stretching exercises, go grocery shopping, prepare my own meals, and make an effort to stay active throughout the day. I had small but important habits, my routines that kept me active and healthy. However, everything changed after he moved to a nursing home. At first, I thought I was just relaxing. Meals were brought to me, and when I needed something, all I had to do was press a button. I wasn't getting tired anymore. I didn't have to struggle. I never thought it could be a bad thing, until my body started giving signals. The less I moved, the weaker my muscles became. Things I used to do without a second thought became increasingly difficult. Even getting up from where I was sitting required effort. When I stood up, my legs trembled. And I realized that this wasn't happening to just me. Many people who initially came independently gradually started needing walkers and even wheelchairs. The less they moved, the quicker they lost strength. Everything done in the name of comfort was actually making them more dependent. I remember my neighbor's Alice. When she first moved in, she was 81 years old. We were the same age. When I moved to the nursing home, I thought I was just changing my address. But actually, I hadn't realized that I was also changing the way I live my life. When I was at home, I had routines that connected me to the day. I would make my own coffee in the morning, read my newspaper, and take care of small household chores. I would water my plants, tidy up my kitchen, and in the evenings, I would engage in crafts while watching something. These weren't big things, but they were habits that kept me busy and connected to life. Then I moved to a nursing home. Meals were being prepared for me. My room was being cleaned. There were no more tasks to be done. At first, I thought this was a relief. I can finally rest, I told myself. But after a few weeks, I realized something was missing. The days seemed to stretch on. Since everything was done for me, I didn't have to do anything. But doing nothing gradually created a void within me. And it's not just me. I've seen it in the people around me as well. Those who used to be energetic and productive were now spending their days just sitting and waiting. For example, there was George, an 84-year-old man who had been a carpenter his whole life. At home, he would always be fixing things and coming up with new projects. But here, he had neither tools nor any work to do. One day, while sitting idly without holding anything, he said, "I feel like I'm useless." And I fully understood what you meant. Being busy with something is not just about passing the time. It is necessary to not lose the meaning of life. When your mind slows down, your body slows down too. And after a while, you feel like a figure flowing through time, there but not truly living. If you are considering moving to a nursing home, ask yourself this question. What are the things that connect you to life? Because after moving here, you will need to consciously fight to not lose that meaning. But she was a very energetic woman. She would walk around the facility every day and say that age wouldn't let it slow her down. But it changed within a few months. At first, her walks became less frequent. Then she started using a walker. After a while, he became completely dependent on a wheelchair. One day he turned to me and said, "I don't know when it happened, but in a few months it felt like I aged 10 years. And it really felt that way. Nursing homes are places designed to provide comfort. However, sometimes this comfort can unknowingly weaken a person. If I had known how quickly I would lose my strength, I would have fought harder. I would have made an effort to move a little more every day, to maintain my muscles, and to stay active. I have a video on this topic on the channel. I definitely recommend you watch it. I shared a great research study on body health. If you are considering moving to a nursing home, ask yourself this question. When your life is made easier, will you still make an effort to keep your body strong? Because once you slow down, gaining speed again can be much harder than you think. Don't forget what I said. We are continuing. Regret 4. Losing my purpose. When I moved to the nursing home, I thought I was just changing my address. But actually, I hadn't realized that I was also changing the way I live my life. When I was at home, I had routines that connected me to the day. I would make my own coffee in the morning, read my newspaper, and take care of small household chores. I would water my plants, tidy up my kitchen, and in the evenings, I would engage in crafts while watching something. These weren't big things, but they were habits that kept me busy and connected to life. Then I moved to a nursing home. Meals were being prepared for me. My room was being cleaned. There were no more tasks to be done. At first, I thought this was a relief. I can finally rest, I told myself. But after a few weeks, I realized something was missing. The days seemed to stretch on. Since everything was done for me, I didn't have to do anything. But doing nothing gradually created a void within me. And it's not just me. I've seen it in the people around me as well. Those who used to be energetic and productive were now spending their days just sitting and waiting. For example, there was Albert, an 82-year-old man who had been an electrician his whole life. At home, he would always fix things and come up with new projects. But here, he had neither tools nor any work to do. One day, while sitting idly without holding anything, he said, "I feel like I'm useless." And I fully understood what you meant. Being busy with something is not just about passing the time. It is necessary to not lose the meaning of life. When your mind slows down, your body slows down too. And after a while, you feel like a figure flowing through time, there but not truly living. If you are considering moving to a nursing home, ask yourself this question. What are the things that connect you to life? Because after moving here, you will need to consciously fight to not lose that meaning. Regret 5. Loss of privacy. Before moving to the nursing home, I thought the biggest change would be physical. But the hardest part was losing my privacy and control. At home, I had my own space. I could close my door, set my own schedule. But here, there was constant movement, constant surveillance. Staff members were coming in and out of the rooms, scheduled checks were being conducted, and even the simplest tasks required the help of others. Now, I had to ask for permission for the things I did without thinking when I was independent. Do you want to take a shower? You might have to wait. Do you want to use the toilet? Press the call button and wait. And food? You have to eat whatever is on the menu that day. Roommates were another challenge. If you're lucky, you'll find a compatible one. If you're unlucky, finding peace can become impossible. The most challenging thing was the feeling of losing one's identity. I was no longer the one setting my own routines. I was being talked to not as a person, but as a patient. And no matter how hard I try to get used to it, this place has never truly felt like mine. If you are considering a nursing home, ask yourself this question. Are you ready to give up the privacy and control you have had throughout your life? Because when it goes away for a while, it's hard to bring it back. I want to make a reminder. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell to stay updated with our new videos. Your support helps us provide you with the best content and make inspiring posts. Let's move on to our last point. Regret 6. When I moved to the nursing home, I thought it was just a trial. If I didn't like it, I would have left, right? But what I didn't realize was how difficult it would be to get out once I went in. When I wanted to return home, I saw that everything had changed. The long vacancy of my house had complicated things. My children had sold some of my belongings and even considered renting out the house. And when I said I could come back, they hesitated. Can you really do this all by yourself? What stops me the most is that I'm no longer as strong as I used to be. Living for months without cooking, without cleaning, without taking long walks had weakened me without me realizing it. The idea of independence started to seem frightening. I met many people like me. At first, they had come as just an experiment, but over time, the return had become even more difficult. For some, this option had completely disappeared. When their houses were sold, when their savings were exhausted, the outside world had simply become a memory. No one is saying this, but moving to a nursing home may not be as reversible a decision as you think. If you are considering a nursing home, ask yourself, are you ready for the breakup to be much harder than you think? Final thoughts. I'm not sorry about getting older, but I regret thinking that a nursing home was my only option. I was expecting comfort and security, but what I found was a world where I was slowly losing my independence, privacy, and sense of self. We've reached the end of our video. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share it with your friends. If you have someone in your surroundings living in a nursing home, write about their experiences in the comments. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.